Ikraam Reyaz joins the podcast today, co-founder and chief executive officer at a company called SFL Tech Limited. Ikram is joining me all the way from Dubai, the United Arab Emirates, to share with me a little bit about his background, his journey as a leader, and also the impact that he's making across the several countries that he's responsible for. Ikram, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I appreciate you connecting with me over this discussion.
Thanks, Rishan. Nice meeting you and happy to be here.
Absolutely awesome. Leadership podcast, right? I always love starting off a little bit with the early days, though, long before the actual leadership by definition role, how it all started, how it all began. And maybe you can start off by telling me a little bit about your background, first job, and how that all began.
All right. So, well, my first job was working for my father. I think a lot of people from my part of the world, I'm originally from Sri Lanka, been living and working out of India for the last 15 years prior to moving to Dubai just a couple of months ago. So yeah, my journey has been working for my father in a family-run business. It was a logistics company and started off by maybe 20 years ago, filing papers, using the stapler, using the hole puncher, putting all the documents into folders in particular orders because shipping documents are quite a lot those days. You have a lot of paper printouts, and I guess the general manager of the station back in Sri Lanka thought that's the best way to learn the basics. So I did that for 2 months, ended up doing a lot of filing, and then got bored very fast. So that was a part-time summer job in his business. Yeah, and from there, well, basically, I then left the business and went to do my studies in Malaysia, did a Canadian matriculation program, and then decided to get back into the business where my dad had established. So by his own right, he's pretty well established. He's got about 400 people working across 5 countries in a logistics firm. And my role was to take charge of the Bangalore office, and that's when I moved to India. So there was running. So his theory, and I guess the entrepreneur style is throw the person into the deep end and see if he can swim. So that was my first interaction in the real world. Talking to a colleague of mine, it gave me stage fright the first sales visit I had to do because it ended up be having to go and collect money of a person that didn't want to really give the payment out because of service issues. So yeah, so I don't know if I'm going into too much detail, but that's how it all started. And then from there, get to know the people of the business. Lived in Bangalore for 6 years, moved over to Mumbai, was there for a year, moved over to Chennai, lived there for a year, moved over to New Delhi. So a bit of a backpacker in moving around all parts of India. But learned the business, learned it from a cultural perspective, learned it from a geographical perspective because India is quite diverse in many ways. And that gave me really good, strong foundations to really accept people of different cultures, backgrounds of experience, and really get to understand people. So I would say that was a good foundation for me to then move into becoming an entrepreneur myself 15 years after for various reasons, which I think we'll get into and talk about.
A really good background. I love some of the key learnings that you've gotten there from your father as well. Just being able to be close to him and observe the entrepreneurial, but also leadership activity and impact that he might have had as well, across these diverse regions and the businesses that he's been responsible for. Before I tap into your leadership journey a little bit, right, because I really want to get there, can you share with me a little bit about SFL? Like, tell me a little bit about the company.
All right. So SFL stands for Soft Freight Logic. That's the full form of it. And basically, being a background of logistics, it's an IT and consulting firm specialized only for logistics firms, right? So we have partnered up with one of the leading 3PL software companies called WiseTech Global. They're headquartered out of Australia, and they are the leading ERP for logistics today. And when I say logistics, it's more freight forwarding, which is moving goods by air and ocean from port to port. That's the strength of that application. And again, because of my past background, that's where we've mostly experienced and exposed to. But after being with SFL, we've built products around the supply chain to bring visibility. We do back office work for doing data entry into this application. So trying to give basically our clients an ecosystem where they don't need to shop for different things in different places. They come to one firm to provide digitization of their business. So that's what we, as SFL, try to do with our customers.
Okay, so in a nutshell, it sounds like you're really putting your customers in a position to have that connected experience across the board for all their logistics, I guess, software requirements, right? Just in terms of supporting their business and being able to be autonomous in terms of their business focus areas above and beyond technology. So great model. And going back to your background, you talked about everything that you've learned in the past, just in terms of your first job and how it all started. Super curious. Of course, SFL was co-founded, and you're the chief executive officer of the company. Tell me a little bit about the beginning. I know you mentioned your dad had a theme and a principle that he applied about throw someone in the deep end and they figure things out. So it sounds like you really kind of did that. But I'm super curious about the story around how you co-founded the organization and how it all began.
Right. Right. So my style is different. The newer generation do it differently and would like to do it differently to the way their fathers did it, just so that you bring your own personality. So I'm not somebody that follows the rules. I like to give freedom to the team, and I'd like to coach them and understand their pain points before really throwing them in the deep. So yeah, you need to mix and match when you give them a hard task and when they're ready for it. So give them preparation is my style. So again, when I co-founded SFL, the other co-founder was also working for my dad's business. He was showing a lot of interest in the application, which is CargoWise One, and together we decided to do this. Of course, with the blessings of my father, he knew that I have youth behind me, and he's got a traditional business, and I want to push the boundaries, whereas an established business wants to retain market position and go through levels of hierarchy for getting things done. I guess that's today the difference between a startup company and an established one is the capabilities to pivot and really be quick in decision making. So I prefer that environment of quick decision making. And that's what we try to help our customers with today, even though they're established, to break that mindset from being too hierarchically driven and go towards really productivity and use technology today to leverage and save time. So yeah, basically my style is all about getting everybody on board with the idea, and then getting ideas from them and making it into a plan. So with my co-founder, he's the domain expert in terms of the application and product enhancement. I do sales and marketing. So that's again how the organization runs. And I think that's best to run any organization. You need to have minimum 2 people to share responsibilities of, so that you use your skill set for your strength areas and not get into too many areas which you're weak at, which might slow you down. So that's how we've sped up the growth of the company, sharing responsibilities, and then bringing in expertise to the organization where even either both of us lacked. So we brought in partners to grow the business and kept it again open. So I guess that's another style of the way businesses are taking shape today. You need to be able to bring in stakeholders to the business, whereas traditional businesses tend to have their fixed owners and then everybody's employed around them. So how do you empower people? How do you get them to commit to the organization and be part of it? Is a lot of where I spend my time with my partner to really establish SFL. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I'm just trying to give you the philosophy of what we're doing here.
Extremely fascinating philosophy and interesting as well, right? I love how you've highlighted the element of partnership and collaboration and teamwork between you and your partner, just in terms of the split responsibility of the overall organization to serve the greater outcome, which is to make sure that your customers are set up with a suite and a process that allows them to make accelerated decision making. All right. And then you've also talked a lot about your leadership style there in terms of creating a space, embracing ideas of your organization to leverage that to how you impact the team and how you move the company forward, right? So in addition to that, of course, there's a lot of great things that you've talked about there, just in terms of coaching and leadership. In addition to that, what are some of the other leadership themes and principles that you apply to the organization that you kind of live by, and some of which you're proud of?
Yeah, I think one of the things which we'd like to we emphasize a lot is hard work. You can be smart at what you do. You need smart work as well. So what's the balance between hard and smart work, right? We tend to see smarter people being lazier than the harder working people, and the harder working people being not as smart as the ones. But striking that balance in an individual is the way to go. And that's a lot where, again, between my partner and I, we try to balance it out. He gets them to work hard, and I get them to work smart, and then together they bring in both skill sets. So that kind of, it's like a father-mother kind of relationship you need to have. That's the purpose of family, right? The father has its own skills, the mother has its own, and how do you bring up children? Both can't have the same personalities and expect the person to be all-rounder. So at SFL, we try to make sure everybody's an all-rounder, they're empowered as much as we can, and as much as they're willing to be empowered. So you can't, there's a saying, you can take the horse to the well, but you can't make it drink. So it has to drink in its own. So we do need to manage that well, and again, because a lot of our workforce is straight out of college. A lot of the team members we have are first time employed at SFL, and they've been with us now for 4 years. So we encourage to bring in fresh ideas, to get out of college, join us, and learn with us and grow with us for them and for the organization, rather than bringing in too many experienced people to fill in the gaps. So we're not looking at shortcuts. We're looking at doing it the right way the first time, and making sure that we have sufficient team size who are willing to believe in the same objectives and the same goals of where the company needs to go in the future.
Yeah, and it sounds like you really have your own definition of having a healthy balance of collaboration, contribution, and superpowers of individuals that come out of college, but also the experienced individuals as well. Blend that in together, aligned with the company's values and the company's missions, and that's what defines success ultimately. Going back to the entrepreneurial activity and journey that you've been on, I often talk to a lot of leaders, many different facets of life, that have entrepreneurial ideas, that want to start their own businesses, that want to take on their own activities as well. But there's this massive element of risk that exists, which eliminates them actually taking that leap and making that move. Talk to me a little bit about, what goes through your mind when you start off SFL. How do you manage the risk? How do you take on, something of that magnitude, and you believe in it and you go and make it work?
Right. I think the fundamentals for us, and why I mentioned we exclusively service the logistics industry. So that's our guiding light, right? So we don't try to move to other industries as a business, and I think that mitigates risk a lot. And be in the industry and for us, where we have exposure and experience, which is logistics. And logistics and the supply chain being quite large, there are niches within that entire supply chain as well. So ours, again, has focused down to freight forwarding, which are predominantly people that move ocean and air cargo internationally. So we've, at the beginning, stuck to that core base of clients because we understand them, we were them, and bring products which we felt they didn't use to the forefront, and they didn't use it because prior to COVID, even when 2 years, 3 years back, still it was slow in adoption where we are out of India and Asia. But we've seen the West adopting them much faster. So bring those products out and make it affordable to our audience, to our part of the world, because a lot of them prefer to employ 3 people than spend money on a software. That was the mindset, right? Because they felt it's cheaper, they can control it better, they can get what needs to be done. So yeah, the guiding light has been stick to the domain, mitigate risk with going in that domain. There's a niche within it, and then at the start build things which you think you would use because you were them. Put yourself in your customer's shoe, right? And again, from our point of view, what I like to keep reminding myself of at time as well before product release is, does my customer's customer need it, right? Because if you're taking care of your customer's customer, you are automatically taking care of your customer, and then he's going to like you. So that's the kind of experience we try to bring to our customers, is tell them as much as we can, and they'd like to hear what their customer wants, and build products in line with that. So yeah, there is the internal productivity piece as well of how to save cost and how to be productive, how to motivate workforce. That's been actually the biggest learning curve for me, is getting into the change management space and get into, why do people want to always do something for their customer, but not sometimes for their own internal customer or their staff. At least in our part of the world, we see a lot of that in old-fashioned businesses, right? So it's changed a lot. Even they have adapted a lot to encourage workforce and equality and sharing ideas. So yeah, so those are some of the guiding principles in all over the place kind of thing of what we do to mitigate risk.
It's a really vital way of looking at it, right? Just in terms of understanding the importance of your customers, and then it's kind of like that ripple effect, because when you drive that behavior within an organization, there's this extensive level of appreciation around what goes above and beyond transacting with just one business, but rather what's happening in the collective around those businesses as well. What has been one of your biggest failures as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, biggest failure would be to do with possibly not growing the company fast enough. I think we a little bit micromanage a few things because coming back from working for ourselves at times, we tend to micromanage too much versus looking at the bigger picture. So constantly trying to see that, are we doing too many small things? Have we got a big idea which we can really achieve? So I would say we could have grown a bit faster if we had put more thought behind some of the decisions we made before doing it. A lot of passion can take over. Your heart takes over your brain. You need to balance those two pieces as well, right? Along with balancing your internality, balance your heart and your brain. So I think we drive a lot from our part of the world. Our culture is passionate. It's about feelings and then logic. So rewiring it to technology today, that's what technology does, right? It forces you to move your heart and go into your brain and then utilize that to bring results. So I think, yeah, these are a few of the maybe things of failure which we could have done better.
Yeah, so I think I read it somewhere as well, where there's this book that talks about emotion and logic, and how when they bridge together, it's the ultimate cause of a lot of mistakes, a lot of failures, and a lot of bad decisions, but also sometimes a lot of great decisions and a lot of impactful decisions at the same time. The more important thing, though, is recognizing that mix of emotion and logic, and defining the distinction between the two, and how applicable and where it is applicable is crucial, right? Because learning from failure is so crucial in just in terms of how you live from that and how you build from that. And so to that end, right, you've obviously established a great organization. You've established a really cool business model and theme and principles that you live by. I'm actually fascinated just by listening to you, just in terms of all the things that you're doing, from creating the space for people, creating the environment for teamwork and collaboration, thinking about customers as well. Like, it's a really great model that you've built. And it sounds like you're in a pretty successful space. What's next? Where do you go from here?
Next from here for us is our own product range. So far, as I mentioned, we've got into good collaborations with leading software companies and technology establishments like ourselves. Now it's about SFL coming up with its own product range to complement this big application called CargoWise One. So we see, just to put it into analogies, we see CargoWise One as an engine, but then you can have different bodies around it, like Formula One. I'm a bit sports enthusiast, so you asked me sport. We're talking to a colleague again about football just 2 days back, and then on a previous interview, I was talking about the Olympics and a sprinter. So, like sport, again, business and sport go really well together. That's another good thing. It brings competitive nature to the business place, and you need to be well spirited in business, right? So you need to be competitive, but should be in good spirit. And sport, again, coming back to a little bit to my roots again, taught me a lot of those fundamentals when I try to work along with people. So yeah, the future is, whilst we have these collaborations in place, utilize them, continue them, but now bring in the nice to haves. You have the essentials, and then you have the nice to haves, right? And today, with data and IT moving to Another nice product of Microsoft is Power BI. It's all about, I read the tagline, I don't remember if I raised the entire phrase, it's visualizing data is the main thing which people need to do in the logistics space today. That's we see as the demand, and differentiating your visualization, right? Putting a picture in front of all those numbers makes easier decision making. It makes life easier. It makes it more informative than dissecting all those numbers. So I think as SFL, our next press would be finding ways to visualize data to our clients using our own product range, and continuing collaborations with, like I said, Microsoft Power BI, CargoWise One. We've recently tied up with another AI company called Deep Cognition. So wherever we don't have skill sets and we don't want to get into because they are niche by itself and a specialization by itself, get in that collaboration, but then come up with a SFL product to our clientele range. And I think the good thing we are building with our clients is that trust, that we can provide more than one technology service to them, right? So a lot of companies get pigeonholed to being either AI company or a consultant on an ERP, or maybe a digital marketing firm. We're trying to bridge and show them that you can have one partner that is good in all. And again, inspiration from the logistics domain. You talk to a DHL, they do trucking, they do warehousing. How did they get into those spaces? So a lot of that inspiration is still with us. Is if they could do it across the supply chain, which is so diverse, why can't we do it with IT? And bring that to our customers. So again, I think a lot like our customer because of I've got more experience being them than myself and SFL, but trying to make sure there's a right balance.
You're going to elevate my excitement if you start talking about Microsoft products here, because obviously it's one of my products, by the way. But we'll save that discussion for another time. I love the comparison with sports and business as well. So, and just so you know, the Proteas are the best cricket team in the world. All right, I think we'll settle that with that comment. Ikraam, I appreciate the conversation. Thank you so much to share. I look forward to seeing what's next with you, and I hope that we get to stay in touch and continue the conversation as well. You have a pretty exciting journey. You've built an incredible business, and you're driving a very impactful culture with your people as well. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
No, Rishan, it's a pleasure. Thank you. I enjoyed myself today. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and look forward to a future session.
Absolutely.